My name is James Thornton. I'm 47 years old, and I've spent my entire life working the family farm in rural Tennessee. 300 acres of prime farmland that's been in our family for 4 generations. I grew up here, learned to drive a tractor before I could legally drive a car, and spent every summer of my childhood baling hay and mending fences alongside my father, Robert Thornton. I have one brother, Michael, 2 years younger than me. Where I stayed on the farm after high school, helping Dad expand the operation, Michael left for college and never looked back. He became a corporate lawyer in Nashville, married a woman from a wealthy family, and built a life completely separate from the dirt and sweat that defined our upbringing. He visited maybe twice a year, always in expensive suits, always treating the farm like a quaint museum of his past, rather than the working operation it was. For 25 years I worked that land. I modernized the equipment, diversified the crops, built relationships with local markets. Dad and I were partners in everything but name. Mom, Margaret, ran the household and kept the books with meticulous precision. She was the quiet backbone of the operation, always there with sweet tea and common sense when things got tough. 3 months ago, Dad was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The decline was swift and brutal. Within weeks, he went from a strong man who could still work a full day to someone who could barely get out of bed. As his condition worsened, he called the family together to discuss his will. I assumed, naturally, that the farm would be split between Michael and me, or perhaps left entirely to me since I dedicated my life to it. I was wrong. Dad had other plans, and those plans would tear our family apart before ultimately revealing a secret that changed everything I thought I knew about my parents, my brother, and the land I'd called home my entire life. We gathered in Dad's bedroom on a gray October afternoon. He was propped up on pillows, his once robust frame now skeletal beneath the blankets. Mom sat in a chair beside him, her face carefully neutral. Michael had driven up from Nashville with his lawyer wife Stephanie, both looking uncomfortable in a house that smelled of sickness and old wood. Dad's attorney, Gerald Matthews, a man who'd handled our family's legal matters for 30 years, sat at the foot of the bed with documents spread across his lap. Robert wants to discuss his estate planning, Gerald began, his voice professionally gentle. He's made some decisions about the distribution of his assets. I stood near the window, arms crossed, trying to prepare myself for whatever was coming. The farm was worth millions now. Prime agricultural land, updated equipment, established contracts with regional distributors. It represented 4 generations of Thornton sweat and sacrifice. "I'm leaving the farm to Michael," Dad said suddenly, his voice weak but clear. The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually stepped backward, catching myself against the wall. "Dad, what? I don't understand." Michael looked just as shocked. "Dad, I don't want the farm. I live in Nashville. I have a career. This doesn't make sense." Dad coughed, a rattling sound that spoke of failing lungs. "You'll figure it out. Sell it, lease it, hire James to manage it. That's your decision to make. But the deed goes to you." "Why?" My voice came out strangled. "I've worked this land for 25 years. I've built this operation from 70-acre cotton farm to 300 acres of diversified agriculture. I've given everything to this place." "I know," Dad said, not meeting my eyes. "And you'll be compensated. There's a cash inheritance for you. $50,000, that's fair. $50,000. For a lifetime of work. For a farm worth at least $4 million. I couldn't breathe. Mom's hand gripped the armrest of her chair so tightly her knuckles went white. But she said nothing. "This isn't right," I managed. "Dad, please, tell me why. Just tell me why." Dad closed his eyes, effectively ending the conversation. Gerald began explaining the legal details, but I couldn't hear him over the roaring in my ears. Michael was saying something about not understanding Dad's reasoning either, about wanting to talk this through as a family, but I was already walking out of the room. I went to the barn, my sanctuary since childhood. Climbed up to the hayloft where I used to hide as a kid when the world got too big. Sat on a bale and stared at my hands, calloused, scarred, the hands of a man who'd worked every day of his adult life, and apparently, it had all been for nothing. Later that evening, after Michael and Stephanie had left, after the house had gone quiet except for the sounds of Dad's labored breathing down the hall, Mom found me sitting on the porch. She didn't say anything at first, just sat in the rocking chair next to mine. We watched the sunset paint the fields gold. The land I'd thought would be mine someday. "Your father's mind is made up," she finally said. I tried to talk to him, many times over the years. He wouldn't budge. Over the years? I turned to look at her. "You mean this wasn't a recent decision?" Mom shook her head. "He's always intended to leave the farm to Michael, since the boys were teenagers. Said it was the right thing to do." "How is that the right thing? Michael doesn't want it. He doesn't need it. I'm the one who's poured my life into this place." "I know, sweetheart. I know it's not fair." She was quiet for a long moment, her weathered hands folded in her lap. Then she leaned closer, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "Go check the attic above the barn tonight, after midnight when your father's asleep. There's something you need to see." "What is it?" "Just go. You'll understand everything." She stood, squeezing my shoulder, and walked back into the house. I sat there as darkness fell, completely confused. The attic above the barn was just storage, old equipment, moth-eaten blankets, boxes of junk accumulated over decades. What could possibly be up there that would explain Dad's inexplicable decision? But Mom's tone had been serious, almost urgent, and she'd never steered me wrong before. So, when the house went dark, and I heard Dad's pain medication kick in, his snoring audible even from my cottage on the property, I grabbed a flashlight and headed to the barn. The October night was cold, my breath misting in the air. The barn loomed dark against the starlit sky, familiar in the way only a place you've known your whole life can be. I slipped inside, breathing in the scent of hay and old wood, and climbed the ladder to the attic access. The attic was cramped, with a low slanted roof and decades of accumulated farm detritus. I swept my flashlight across the space, unsure what I was looking for. Old furniture, broken tools, stacks of yellowed newspapers. Then I noticed something in the far corner, a newer-looking trunk, out of place among the antiques. I made my way over, navigating around boxes and rafters. The trunk wasn't locked. I lifted the lid and found it filled with documents, photographs, and letters. I pulled out the first stack and began reading by flashlight. What I discovered in the next hour would rewrite everything I thought I knew about my family. The documents were legal papers dating back 25 years, adoption papers, for Michael. My brother had been adopted when he was 4 years old. I'd been 6. I had no memory of him not being part of our family. But here was the proof. He wasn't a Thornton by blood. The letters were between Mom and a woman named Sarah Thornton, Dad's sister, who I'd been told died before I was born. Except she hadn't died. She'd gotten pregnant out of wedlock in the early 1980s, a scandal in our small Tennessee community. She'd given birth to Michael and, unable to care for him as a single mother facing community judgment, had asked Robert and Margaret to raise him as their own. They'd agreed, but Sarah had made them promise something, that Michael would inherit the farm. It was in writing, a legal agreement signed by all parties. Sarah's son would receive the Thornton legacy, ensuring her bloodline continued on the family land even if she couldn't raise him herself. I sat back against a beam, trying to process this. Michael wasn't just my brother. He was my cousin, and Dad had been honoring a promise to his sister for 25 years, a promise that meant I would lose everything I'd worked for. But there was more in the trunk. Financial documents showing that Sarah had actually funded much of the farm's expansion over the years. The equipment I thought Dad had bought with farm profits. Sarah's money. The land purchases that had tripled our acreage. Sarah's money. She'd been a silent partner in the farm's success, investing hundreds of thousands of dollars over decades, all funneled through Dad's accounts so no one would know. And letters from Sarah to Mom, dozens of them spanning 20 years. They told the story of a woman who'd made the heartbreaking choice to give up her son, but never stopped being his mother from a distance. She'd moved to California, built a successful career in real estate, never married, never had other children. Michael was her only child, and she'd spent her life ensuring he'd inherit what she saw as his birthright. The most recent letter was dated just 3 months ago, right before Dad's diagnosis. "Margaret, I'm dying. Liver cancer. The doctors give me 6 months, maybe less. Robert promised me Michael would get the farm. Please make sure he keeps that promise. It's all I have left to give my son, the land of his ancestors, even if he never knew I was his mother. Tell him the truth after I'm gone if you think it's right, but protect his inheritance. That's all I ask." Clipped to this letter was Sarah's obituary. She'd died 2 months ago in San Francisco. The obituary mentioned no children, no husband, only loving brother Robert Thornton and family in Tennessee. I'd never met my aunt, never even knew she existed beyond a vague mention of Dad having a sister who'd passed away. And now she was gone, and her secret, her son, her money, her promise, all of it was upending my entire life. I heard footsteps on the ladder. Mom's head appeared through the attic opening. "You found it." It wasn't a question. I gestured helplessly at the scattered documents. Why didn't anyone tell me? Why let me think I was being cheated out of what I'd earned when there's this whole story behind it? Mom climbed fully into the attic, moving with the careful precision of a 70-year-old navigating uneven footing. She sat down on an old crate across from me. "Your father wanted to tell you, many times, but Sarah made him promise to keep the secret. She was ashamed, James. She'd been in love with a married man, a professor at the college where she worked. When she got pregnant, he wanted nothing to do with her or the baby. The community would have destroyed her. So she gave Michael to us and disappeared. But I've lived my whole life thinking this farm would be mine someday. You let me believe that." "No," Mom said firmly. "We never promised you the farm. You assumed it, and we didn't correct you, which was wrong. But your father also never planned to cut you out completely. There's more you haven't found yet." She reached into the trunk and pulled out a sealed envelope with my name on it. "Sarah left this for you. She wanted you to have it after she died, after the truth came out." With shaking hands, I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter in neat handwriting and a cashier's check. I looked at the check first and nearly dropped it. $2 million, made out to me. The letter read, "Dear James, you don't know me, but I've known about you your whole life. You're Robert's biological son, the child he and Margaret created together. Michael is my son, the child I couldn't keep. I've watched both of you grow up through photos and Margaret's letters. I know you've worked the farm your whole life. I know you've built it into something remarkable. I know it must feel unbearable to watch it go to Michael, who hasn't earned it the way you have. But please understand, Michael is my only child, and the farm is the only inheritance I can give him. Not because he deserves it more than you, but because I need to know that some part of me, some part of my son, will remain on that land forever. You've already been given the greatest gift, a life lived on the land you love, parents who raised you with pride, the knowledge of where you belong. Michael never had that. He doesn't even know I'm his mother." The letter continued. "I've made my fortune in real estate. I'm leaving the bulk of my estate to Michael through the farm inheritance. But I wanted to provide for you too, to acknowledge your sacrifice. This check represents years of gratitude for sharing your parents with my son, for being the brother he needed even though you didn't know the full story. Use it to buy your own land, to start your own legacy. You have the skills, the knowledge, the work ethic. Build something that's entirely yours. And please, if you can find it in your heart, help Michael understand the value of what he's inheriting. He may not want the farm now, but it's his connection to a mother he never knew, to a family history that's his birthright even if it was hidden from him. Be his brother in this. Guide him. That's all I ask. With deepest respect and gratitude, Sarah Thornton." I read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Mom sat quietly, letting me process. "Does Michael know any of this?" I finally asked. "Not yet. Your father wants to tell him before he dies. He's just been trying to find the right moment, the right words. And Dad? How does he feel about all of this?" Mom's expression softened. "Your father loved his sister deeply. When she came to him pregnant and desperate, he didn't hesitate. He and I had been trying for another child anyway. I'd had 2 miscarriages after you were born. Taking in Michael felt like an answer to both our prayers. But honoring Sarah's request meant eventually breaking your heart, and that's tortured him for years. Why do you think he's been so hard on you sometimes? Distance was easier than facing what he knew was coming. The inheritance feels like a betrayal because you don't know the whole story. But your father isn't choosing Michael over you. He's keeping a promise to a sister who gave up everything, including her own child, to survive in a world that would have condemned her. That farm represents Sarah's sacrifice, Michael's birthright, and yes, your life's work. It's complicated. Family always is." I looked at the check again. $2 million. Enough to buy my own farm, build my own operation, create my own legacy. It didn't erase the sting of losing the family farm, but it opened possibilities I hadn't imagined. "What should I do?" I asked. Mom smiled sadly. "That's up to you, sweetheart. You could walk away, take Sarah's money, start fresh somewhere else. No one would blame you. Or you could stay, help Michael figure out what to do with a farm he never expected to inherit, be the bridge between past and future. Either way, you'll be okay. You're a Thornton. You know how to work hard and build something from nothing." We sat in that attic for another hour, while Mom filled in more details. Sarah had visited secretly a few times when Michael was young, always when I was away at camps or visiting friends. She'd watched him from a distance at his high school graduation, his college graduation, his wedding. She'd sent money for his education through Dad, who'd told Michael it was scholarships and grants. She'd lived her entire adult life loving a son who didn't know she existed, supporting a family from the shadows, and ensuring that one day, her bloodline would inherit the land her ancestors had worked. It was heartbreaking and beautiful and infuriating all at once. The next morning I found Dad awake and alert, a rare thing in these final weeks. I sat beside his bed. "Mom told me to check the barn attic." He nodded weakly. "I thought she might. I was too much of a coward to tell you myself." "You should have told me years ago, Dad. I deserve to know." "You're right. But Sarah made me promise, and I kept that promise, even when it cost me my relationship with my own son." Tears slipped down his weathered face. "I'm sorry, James, for the secrets, for the pain. You deserved better." I took his hand, feeling how fragile it had become. "I understand why you did it. I don't like it, but I understand." Sarah's letter explained a lot. She was a good woman dealt a bad hand by life. Taking in Michael, raising him as ours, it was the least I could do for my sister. "Does Michael need to know about Sarah being his mother?" Dad coughed, wincing with pain. "That's up to you boys to decide. I've told him he's adopted, that his birth mother was someone who couldn't keep him. He's known that since he was 18, but who she was specifically, that's your story to tell or keep. He deserves to know, maybe. But consider this. Sarah wanted him to have the farm as his inheritance, not to burden him with guilt about a mother he never knew. Maybe the land itself is the story. Maybe that's enough." Dad died 2 weeks later, on a quiet November morning with all of us at his bedside. We buried him in the family plot at the edge of the property, 4 generations of Thorntons now resting in Tennessee soil. At the funeral, Michael pulled me aside. "I don't want the farm, James. I've never wanted it. I'm going to sign it over to you. This whole inheritance thing is crazy. You're the one who's earned it." I shook my head. "Don't make that decision yet. There's more to the story than you know. Give it time. Let's talk after things settle down." Over the next month, I told Michael everything. We sat in that same barn attic and I showed him the documents, the letters, Sarah's obituary. I watched his face as he processed that his birth mother had been our aunt, that she'd been part of his life from a distance all along, that the farm inheritance was her final gift to a son she'd never been able to claim. He cried. We both did. Then we spent hours talking about what it all meant, what we should do with this complicated legacy we'd been left. Michael met with lawyers, financial advisors, agricultural consultants. He researched options for the farm's future, and 3 months after Dad's death, he presented me with a proposal. "I'm creating a trust," he explained over coffee in Mom's kitchen. "The farm stays in Thornton family ownership, but it's managed professionally. You'll be the director of operations, salary, benefits, creative control over farming decisions. I'll handle the business and legal aspects from Nashville. Profits get split, 60% to operations and reinvestment, 40% distributed to family. Your kids, my kids, Mom. Everyone benefits. You're not selling? How can I sell my mother's legacy? A woman who gave me up so I could have a better life, who funded this operation for decades, who wanted nothing more than for her son to have roots, even if she couldn't give them to me directly. I can't sell that, but I also can't run it. I don't have your knowledge or passion, so we do it together. You work the land, I handle the business, like Dad and Mom did, just in a different configuration." I agreed. It wasn't what I'd originally envisioned, sole ownership of the Thornton farm, but it was something better in many ways. A partnership with my brother, a sustainable structure for the future, and the freedom to actually work the land I loved, without the crushing weight of business management I'd always struggled with. With Sarah's $2 million, I bought the adjoining property, 150 acres that had recently come up for sale. I built my own house there, a place entirely mine. My children would inherit that land, creating a new branch of the Thornton agricultural legacy. The family farm would continue through Michael's line, my farm through mine, both working in parallel. Mom stayed in the farmhouse until her death 5 years later. Before she passed, she told me she was proud of how Michael and I had handled everything. Your father was so worried you boys would end up hating each other over this inheritance. Instead, you found a way to honor Sarah's wishes while building something new. That's what family does. We adapt, we forgive, we build bridges instead of burning them. Today, 10 years after Dad's death, both farms are thriving. Michael's kids spent summers here learning to work the land, connecting with their grandmother Sarah's legacy, even though they know her only through stories. My kids work alongside them, cousins bound by land and labor. We've even put up a small monument at the property line between our farms, a simple stone marker that reads, Sarah Thornton, 1955-2016, a mother's love, a family's promise, a legacy preserved. Sometimes I think about that night in the barn attic, when Mom sent me to discover the truth. How angry I was, how betrayed I felt, how I thought I was losing everything. I couldn't have known then that I was actually gaining something more valuable. The full story of my family, a deeper relationship with my brother, and the freedom to build my own legacy rather than simply inheriting someone else's. The land doesn't care who owns the deed. It just wants to be worked, to be productive, to connect one generation to the next. Michael and I have figured out how to honor that truth together, how to be stewards rather than just owners. And every time I look across the fence line between our properties, I think of Sarah Thornton, a woman I never met who shaped my life in profound ways. She gave up her son to protect him from judgment. She funded our family's success from the shadows. She ensured her bloodline would continue on land her ancestors had worked. And she left enough money for me to build my own dream. In doing all of that, she taught me that family isn't just about blood or inheritance. It's about sacrifice, love, and the complicated choices we make to protect the people we care about. When Dad signed everything to Michael that October afternoon 10 years ago, I thought my world was ending. But Mom's whispered instruction, "Go check the attic above the barn tonight," set in motion a discovery that ultimately saved our family. The truth didn't erase the pain, but it explained it. And explanation, I've learned, is often the first step toward forgiveness. I still work this land every day. I still wake up before sunrise and don't finish until after sunset. I still have soil under my fingernails and calluses on my palms. But now I do it by choice, on my own land, in partnership with my brother, rather than in competition with him. The Thornton legacy continues, just not in the way any of us expected. And maybe that's the real lesson Sarah left us, that the best inheritances aren't the ones we planned for, but the ones we build together when forced to confront hard truths and make difficult choices. My name is James Thornton. I'm 47 years old, and I'm a fourth-generation Tennessee farmer. I almost lost everything because of a secret kept for 25 years. But that same secret, once revealed, gave me more than I ever imagined possible: truth, partnership, independence, and a deeper understanding of what family really means. Sometimes the attic above the barn holds more than old junk and forgotten furniture. Sometimes it holds the keys to understanding your entire life. I'm grateful Mom sent me up there that October night. And I'm grateful for Sarah Thornton, the aunt I never knew who loved her son enough to give him away, and loved our family enough to ensure we'd all be taken care of, even if it took a generation to fully understand her gift.